is here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, when I left the airwaves on Friday, I was very impressed with President Trump's comments after the defeat of RhinoCare. He was baited into attacking the conservatives. He refused to do it. He focused the blame where it belonged. But then comes the weekend, and he unleashes a vicious attack against the Freedom Caucus and certain conservative organizations. The president needs to understand something. He's supposed to be the outsider. He's supposed to be the guy who's draining the swamp. So when you lie down with the alligators in the swamp, Mr. President, you get bitten. And that's what happened to you. I want to reiterate my congratulations to the Freedom Caucus. Actually, 18 conservatives out of the rest of them. The others peeled off. All of a sudden, a guy by the name of Tom Poe is famous, a backbencher from Texas, because he quit the Freedom Caucus and attacked the Freedom Caucus. And those kinds of Benedict Arnold types are very, very popular in the liberal media. Just saying. Now, I look at the horizon with the Republicans in Congress and a Republican president, and I have to laugh. They think they have it tough, ladies and gentlemen. You would think this was Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Congress in the Civil War. The way they whine and complain. Oh, we can't get this done, we can't get that done, and the people will be angry with us, and we don't want to cut Medicaid anymore, and if you're 25, you should be on Daddy and Mommy health care plan, and on and on. We've seen great presidents, we've seen great Congresses. This ain't that. At least yet. Now, in 2010, before there was a Speaker Ryan, before there was a President Trump, despite the fact that Reince Priebus, I believe, was at the RNC as chairman and a loser, we conservatives at the grassroots level in every state rose up in the form of the Tea Party. And we defeated Nancy Pelosi and the liberal Democrats. And we installed the Republicans, who immediately picked John Boehner, another loser, to be Speaker of the House. And we fought and fought and fought to remove Boehner, another Benedict Arnold. And we succeeded. And then they picked Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan, who is said to be a free market conservative, and yet virtually at every single turn, he turns out not to be. In 2010 and 2012, we tried to take the Democrat Party out of the majority in the Senate and failed. But finally, in 2014, we conservatives did exactly that. And, of course, the Republicans chose Mitch McConnell as the majority leader of the Senate. We had no control over that, and there he sits, useless as ever. While all this is going on, only after that, Donald Trump decides to run for president of the United States. You know the story. He taps into what took place in 2010 and 2012 and 2014. He didn't invent it. He tapped into it. And effectively so. Effectively so. All this talk about nationalism and populism and outsiders and all the rest. The fact of the matter is, this has been and continues to be an ongoing conservative rebellion against the Republican establishment. And the people we send to Washington, whether they be a House member or a Senate member or the President of the United States, has to make a decision. Do they stand with us or do they stand with them? This isn't about governing our way to destitution, governing our way to massive debt, governing our way to the poorhouse. This is about restoring the republic. And it takes work, and it takes courage. And apparently the Republican Party's not up to it. So they trashed the 18 men. 18. That's it. In the House of Representatives. Who stood up to them. And of course, there were 193 Democrats or so and 16 phony Republicans, 6 phony Republicans, who also opposed the bill. But they get a pass in the liberal media because they won't be happy. Whether it's the liberal media, the frauds who write at the Wall Street Journal editorial page, some frauds on Fox, frauds on MSNBC and CNN, frauds in the White House. That's right, I said it. Threatening the conservatives that they either vote for this monstrosity or they're on the S list. I believe that was Bannon's phrase, the S list. Oh, we're so scared. We're on the S list. Oh, my goodness, we're on the S list. Maybe we won't get invited somewhere. This is about the American people. This is what's right for the American people. For the people who pay the bills. For the people who pay the taxes. For the people these clowns in Washington are supposed to represent. Inside the Beltway, Democrat, Republican, White House, Senate, House, media, all turned their guns on 18 brave men who stood up to them. Now, I want you to listen very, very carefully to Paul Ryan in January 2016. Hap Tip Conservative Review. I'm so proud to be editor-in-chief there. I had nothing to do with this. They dug up. Our buddy Eno and others. Now, I want you to listen to this. This is only 14 months ago. Please listen carefully. Up the volume. Cut one, go.
It's no surprise that someone named Obama vetoed a bill repealing Obamacare. And we will hold a vote to override this veto, taking this process all the way to the end under the Constitution. But here's the thing. The idea that Obamacare is the law of the land for good is a myth. This law will collapse under its own weight, or it will be repealed. Because all those rules and procedures Senate Democrats have used to block us from doing this, that's all history. We have shown now that there is a clear path to repealing Obamacare without 60 votes in the Senate. So next year, if we're sending this bill to a Republican president, it will get signed into law. Obamacare will be gone.
This is exactly what those 18 brave patriots in the Freedom Caucus have said. They have repeated what Paul Ryan said 14 months ago. He said, we have shown now that it is clear, a clear path to repealing Obamacare without 60 votes in the Senate. So next year, if we're sending this bill to a Republican president, it will get signed into law and Obamacare will be gone. Then send it, damn it! But they didn't send it. They didn't send the bill to the president to do exactly what Paul Ryan promised that they would do. All of a sudden, we're told, we can't get rid of all of Obamacare because of the 60-vote filibuster rule in the Senate. He said here, we have shown now that there is a clear path to repealing Obamacare without 60 votes in the Senate. He said it. He said it. If we Republicans control everything, we will repeal Obamacare. We can do it without the 60-vote issue in the Senate. Send it to a Republican president, and he will sign it into law. Lie after lie, year after year, election after election, and they dare attack the 18 patriots who have stood up to them. 18, just 18. Now we have to govern, they say, ladies and gentlemen. Now they degrade themselves. They embarrass themselves. Now we have to govern. So what was it before when you said these things? Mr. Speaker? Mr. President? House members? Senate members? What did you mean? Was it all a joke? Was it all a fraud? Yes, apparently it was. What a disgrace. And I have to watch, and you do, for 72 hours, of the people who are doing the honorable thing, who are trying to uphold the promises that Speaker Ryan made, that the President made, that they've all made, are under attack. You know why they're under attack? Because they are exposing the system for being as corrupt as it is. Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. Constant bait and switch. Oh, the Senate parliamentarian won't agree. Now, we know that's not true. We've talked about that before. They want to keep the pre-existing condition. They want to keep the Medicaid expansion for all intents and purposes. They want to keep the children, the young adults, on the parents' plan. They keep the subsidies. They call them tax credits. What a fraud. A 30% penalty in place of a mandate. Planned Parenthood funding. Planned Parenthood funding is funded another year. I mean, they take it off for a year, and then off after that they can add it back anytime they want. Another phony issue. But still, no across-state line sales. Still, another $1 trillion in costs. Still, your plan will continue to go through the roof. Your deductions will continue to go. Don't tell me about out years, 10 years from now. We all know that's baloney. Now, here's the key. If Barack Obama himself 7 years ago had proposed this exact plan, supported by Ryan, supported by Trump, supported by the vast majority of Republicans in the House, if Barack Obama had proposed this plan 7 years ago, every single Republican would have voted against it and condemned it for the crap that it is, and condemned it as a big, centralized government plan with new entitlements and red tape. They'd be going on and on about how we need to introduce competition and capitalism and private sector involvement. They'd be going on and on about across state lines you need to be able to buy. We've heard it all before. But now, according to the pathetic fools at the Wall Street Journal editorial page, the 18 who stood against it are the Obamacare Republicans. Isn't that clever? Isn't that clever from an editorial page that has been beclowning itself for decades now? Attacking the Tea Party, attacking conservatives. They are the mouthpiece for crony capitalism and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. That's who they are. That's what they are. 17% of the American people supported this bill. A complicated bill. Complicated because it's built on the Obamacare model. This didn't repeal Obamacare. That is another outright lie. It never repealed Obamacare. They could repeal it. Paul Ryan told us 14 months ago that was the plan. They abandoned the plan. They abandoned you. They abandoned their promises. This isn't about purity and getting 100% of what you want. We would take 80% of it, but we're not going to take 2%. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
It's no surprise that someone named Obama vetoed a bill repealing Obamacare. And we will hold a vote to override this veto, taking this process all the way to the end under the Constitution. But here's the thing. The idea that Obamacare is the law of the land for good is a myth. This law will collapse under its own weight, or it will be repealed. Because all those rules and procedures Senate Democrats have used to block us from doing this, that's all history. We have shown now that there is a clear path to repealing Obamacare without 60 votes in the Senate. So next year, if we're sending this bill to a Republican president, it will get signed into law. Obamacare will be gone.
They didn't send that bill to a Republican president, and the Republican president didn't ask them to send that bill. What's up with that? And if they weren't going to do that, they had 7 years to come up with an alternate plan. And instead, they schemed in secret, the House leadership did, with the more liberal members, keeping the Freedom Caucus out of the process. And by the way, we the people, too. Oh, we're doing regular order. Regular order? Crap through a goose is what that is. That's not regular order. And then, 18 days to resolve the differences. 18 days. That's what Trump gives them. 18 days? Having served in the Reagan administration, it took 8 months to get his signature tax plan through. 8 months. 18 days? Who set that deadline and why? Because it was a play for chicken. Chicken. You play chicken. They played chicken and they lost. So now what do? They turn on the conservatives, but even more than that, they're reaching out to the Democrats. Reince Priebus, a disgrace from day one, a manipulator, an operator, first as chairman of the RNC and now as chief of staff at the White House. Reince Priebus says, yeah, it's time, we're going to start reaching out to Democrats. President says the same thing. Other Republicans say the same thing. Like one jerk here, I'll get to him, this Kinzinger, in a minute. So they're going to reach out to the Democrats who created Obamacare. They're going to reach out to the Democrats who are calling for the president's impeachment. They're going to reach out to the Democrats who are saying that the president of the United States is illegitimate because the Russians put him in office. Oh, you're going to reach out to those Democrats. Oh, they're going to reach out to the Democrats who are going to filibuster a good man, Neil Gorsuch, to prevent him from going to the Supreme Court. He's going to reach out to the Democrats and trash the handful of conservatives who are left because they raise legitimate concerns and because they try to hold this corrupt Washington mentality to its promises? Oh, my goodness. We've taken a left turn, and that concerns me a great deal. More when I return. Senator Tom Cotton on Deface the Nation. Cut to go.
It's no surprise that someone named Obama
have to revisit it. We now have the time to do it in a more deliberate and careful fashion. But ultimately, I don't think you can lay the defeat of this bill last week on any single faction in the House of Representatives. Some conservatives opposed it. Some moderates opposed it. Even chairmen of powerful committees opposed it. I just think the problem was with first the bill and then the process. Health care is a very complicated issue. To release a bill that was written in secret and then expect to pass it in 18 days, I just don't think was feasible.
And the bill's a turd on top of everything else. We should thank these 18 conservative patriots for standing up against everybody and everything else. The lobbyists, the special interests, the White House, the threats from Bannon, the threats from fellow members in the House. All of it. The personal attacks. Mike Lee on Meet the Depressed. Cut 3, go.
As a whole lot of people said just the other day, as Paul Ryan himself said when this bill was going down the tubes, he said we came so close. And he's right. They were not far away from a deal. They could have gotten to a deal. There were a few things they could have added to the bill that could have brought enough people into the bill to vote for it so that it would have passed. This is part of the legislative process. The process has to be allowed to play itself out. And as you pointed out, devoting 17 legislative days to a bill and then walking away from it because it hasn't passed within 17 legislative days makes no sense, especially when this is something that we've been campaigning on for 7 years and the American people are hurting.
No, you don't understand, Senator Mike Lee. The purists, the 18 conservatives in the Freedom Caucus, they kept changing the goalposts, the goal line. They get something, they move the goal line. They get something, they move the goal line. Have you heard that all weekend? Of course you have. It's a lie. The people who changed the goal line were Paul Ryan, the Republican leadership, and the White House. Now, I played it twice. Paul Ryan, he's the one who moved the goalposts. The White House moved the goalposts. Reince Priebus moved the goalposts. The Republican establishment, nationalists, populists, they all moved the goalposts. The goal was to repeal Obamacare. Paul Ryan said, without 60 votes in the Senate, we have this stuff figured out. Install a Republican president, we'll send him the bill, and Obamacare will be gone. Quote, Obamacare will be gone, unquote. Now they pretend they've repealed it when they haven't. And all but for these 18 conservatives, we'd be living in Shangri-La. Paradise, right over the horizon. Then we'd have phase 2 and phase 3, you see, ladies and gentlemen. They sound like Maoists. Phase 2 and phase 3. We have a 10-year plan. Within that, we have a 5-year plan. We got all kinds of plans, like they're going to control Washington for a decade. Or, even more, like they're going to keep their promises. Yes, Mr. President, Democrats are smiling in D.C., but not because of the conservatives. The White House should have told Paul Ryan, go back and fix this. This isn't what I promised the American people. But with Reince Priebus as the insider and Paul Ryan as the outsider, what a screw-up. What a screw-up. I told you last week, I feel one of the problems in this White House is you can't name for me a single constitutional conservative in the president's inner circle. I can name for you New York liberal Democrats who worked at Goldman Sachs. New York liberal Democrats are in his family. I can name for you 2 populist nationalists. I can't name for you a single constitutional conservative / free market capitalist in his innermost senior circle. And that's part of the problem. Not even to listen to. Not even at the table. Not even at the table. I want you to listen to this guy. He's particularly pathetic. His name is Adam Kinzinger. He pops up all over TV trashing conservatives. I want you to keep something in mind. When this man first ran, he ran as a Tea Party-endorsed conservative. He sought the Tea Party endorsement when he ran in his district in Illinois. As soon as he won, he flipped for Boehner. He flipped for Boehner. He's another dishonest politician. So he's on MSLSD today. Hat tip right, Scoot. Cut 6, go.
You know better than anyone, your party ran on repeal and replace health care. So what do you do now?
Well, I think we move on to the next thing. I mean, I think we have 2 options here. We move on to tax reform. I think we need to try to reach out to Democrats, at least at the beginning. If Democrats decide they don't want to work with us, that's another issue. But
Genius. Genius. I think the Democrats have already decided that. Can you name 20 Democrats in the House who would work with, quote-unquote, work with us? This is just crap. Go ahead.
At least maybe 2 dozen people that'll be willing to work on tax reform. Maybe more if we tie with infrastructure. On health care...
Stop. Boy, that was quick, wasn't it? Maybe more if we tie with the infrastructure. Now, on health care... So in other words, if we spend $1 trillion, maybe we'll get $200 billion in tax cuts. Now, of course, we'll have $1.2 trillion in new debt. Doesn't matter. We'll do anything. So he's already in for infrastructure. He's already in. He's not the only one. I'm going to point that out in a minute. He's all in, this jerk. Oh, and what are we going to have? These obstructionist Tea Party Freedom Caucus types blocking our infrastructure bill? We need to run millionaires against them in the Republican primaries. Put them on your S list. Yes, put them on the S list. We got to go after them. Right, conservatives? Go ahead.
The Democrats to fix the system now. We ran on repeal replace for a long time. I think we had a bill that, we can argue about the merits of it. I thought it was pretty good, but it was going to...
we can argue about the merits of it, but it needed to pass. Needed to pass. Merits or no merits, we needed to pass it. This guy's an empty suit. But it gets even worse. Newt Gingrich is on Fox and Friends today. And he's on a long time, and he's talking, but I want to focus in on something. The great Newt Gingrich. asked by Brian Kilmeade, a man I actually like very much. He's a good guy. But listen to this. Cut 7, go.
But right now, Newt Gingrich, if you're the strategist and the president calls you tomorrow, turn the page on Obamacare and now focus on tax reduction, tax reform?
No. I think they're going to, and I think that's wrong. Focus on infrastructure first, because you can reach out to every single Democrat on infrastructure. You can write a bipartisan bill that gets an enormous margin. Trump ought to want a Trump majority in the House.
So here we go. Utterly and completely abandons every principle he ever held. If Barack Obama had proposed, again, it's the Obama test, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Gingrich. If Obama had proposed another $1 trillion infrastructure spending plan, we would be marching in the streets. Well, no, it's different now. It's a Republican. No, those dollars are green dollars. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. $1 trillion on top of over $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities. $1 trillion on top of $20 trillion in fiscal operating debt. This president and this Republican Congress would be the most profligate in the history of the world. They would beat Obama. If they had passed Rhino Care and had the infrastructure spending, and we have the Ivanka Family Leave Act, this would be massive disaster. And yet, that's where they're being pushed now. By the inside circle, work with the Dems, and by the outside advisors like Gingrich. What we need now, ladies and gentlemen, is a massive infrastructure bill. That'll get us and we'll get 65. I have a better idea. Double down and get all the Democrats. Go ahead.
300 plus and a Trump majority in the Senate of 65 or so.
So now he thinks he's clever, Newt. So he changes. Now we have a Trump majority, not a conservative majority, not a free market majority, not a Republican. We need a Trump majority. When liberals start changing the language, you know there's a problem, and you better look under the covers. When Newt starts changing the language, you know there's a problem, and you better start looking under the covers. They are abandoning fiscal conservatism. Tax cuts or no tax cuts. Regulatory cuts or no regulatory cuts. That's the minimum a Republican should do, right? A Republican president. But massive infrastructure spending, more government, more payoffs to this group and that group with your tax dollars or your children's money because we're borrowing so much of it? Go ahead.
Majority, a Trump majority. You get far further down the road by doing infrastructure next. And then in the middle, you can also do tax reform in parallel. But they should be very, very excited about infrastructure.
I guess, Newt, you should be excited about being a liberal Democrat, Republicans. You should be excited about it. Let me educate Newt Gingrich. Let me educate you, Mr. Gingrich. Nixon tried this stuff. He went on a spending spree, a borrowing spree, created this department and that department. EPA, OSHA, affirmative action got its legs, really, under Nixon. He was trying to buy peace with the most liberal element of the Democrat Party. He's trying to buy peace with the moderate elements of the Democrat Party, even with some of his nominations to the Supreme Court. They pocketed whatever he'd give them. They went along with that part of the agenda that was liberal, and they still wanted his head. And they still wanted his head. And let me tell you folks something. The Democrats hate Donald Trump more than they ever hated Richard Nixon. And they took Nixon down. We can argue the merits another day as this idiot, what is his name? Kingsman or whatever his name is, his congressman. Kingsinger said, right. But what kind of fools believe that if you give them $1 trillion in infrastructure spending, that all of a sudden Chuck Schumer's going to say, you know what, we can work with Donald Trump. They want their majority back. Or Nancy Pelosi's going to say, you know what, we can work with Donald Trump. No, they don't want to work with Donald Trump. They want to destroy him and everyone around him and the Republican Party. So Newt Gingrich proposes the Nixon solution, which is not a solution at all. It's a disaster. Give them what they want. We can show we can govern in supermajorities, and then you get what you want. No, you don't. You get it in the neck. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Killing of more people. So for you Code Pink Republicans out there, I just wanted to give you a heads up. I got a brilliant email from somebody who said, but what about Jeff Sessions? What about Jeff Sessions? Was Jeff Sessions involved in this? Well, he's part of the administration. Yes, he is. He's doing some great things right now. What does that have to do with Obamacare? Oh, I see. One cancels out the other. Oh, okay. You know, there's a key reason I endorse Blindster.com instead of any other window treatment company. That's blindster.com, by the way. Yes, they have a huge selection of custom blinds, shutters, and shades. Yes, their prices are rock bottom. Yes, I love their exclusive fit or free guarantee. Owner Kyle Cox is so certain that you can measure and install your own blinds that if for any reason they don't fit, even if you messed up, Blindster will replace them for free. Now, you only pay shipping. But here's the real heart of Blindster. Even though they sell millions of window treatments, they're more like your neighbor mom and pop store. And it's small, family-owned businesses that are the backbone of America. I am proud to partner with Blindster because Kyle takes such great care of you. And he guarantees it. You know, my listeners even get 35% off with promo MARK at checkout. 35% off with promo MARK. If you can use a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install the highest quality custom shade shutters and blinds. And visit my friends at blindster.com, blindster.com. Use promo code MARK at 35% off. That's blindster.com, 35% off when you use promo code MARK. This guy, Kyle Cox, he's a go-getter. He's an entrepreneur. He started this business really with almost nothing. He went up against the big guys, and he just decided, look, I'm going to focus on the customer. I'm going to give them the absolute best product I can. I'm going to make it as simple and easy as I can. People won't even have to leave their homes and so forth. There have been a lot of copycats. And he said, look, even though it's simple, if you make a mistake, I'll cover it. You just pay for shipping. It's a brilliant idea. As I say, others are trying to copy, but nobody's like Kyle Cox or Blindster.com. That's Blinds, Blindster, Blindster.com, promo code MARK. It's a great product and a terrific service, too. Well, we have more. Oh, yes, we do. And so the pom-pom boys and the Rockettes are all out there. I thought the president's speech on Friday was outstanding. Then he reversed course. Now, if he should lurch to the left, as he's being advised by Newt Gingrich, by this guy Kingser, by Judge Janine, and others, you embrace the Democrats, you got to lurch to the left, because there are very few of them on the right. I can't count any. Abandon the conservatives, because they actually are trying to hold your feet to the fire. Then what's going to happen is the president is going to be left, when it comes to his political base, to a smaller and smaller percentage of the population. On his political base. And if he lurches to the left and the Democrats cut deals with him, then the agenda will be more left, obviously. There'll be a lot more spending and a lot more government. And he won't get any points either, because the Democrats will always be 2 steps to the left of him. If he spends, he will not have spent enough. If he expands the central government, he will not have expanded enough. Meanwhile, the 18 House conservatives are under attack. They're trying to beat them down, so when it comes to other issues, tax reform, infrastructure, and so forth, they'll abandon their conservative principles. They're threatening them. They're on the S list, don't you know? They're on the S list. Meanwhile, Priebus and Gingrich and a whole bunch of Republicans are urging the president to work with Democrats who want him impeached, if not imprisoned, who believe he's illegitimate because he lost the popular vote and he only won the Electoral College, who hope this scandal, quote-unquote, will be created with Russia. He's supposed to work with them because, you see, they're more reasonable. No, they're not reasonable. They're nuts. And the only reason these Republicans want him to work with them is to further bloat the government. This is a big problem. It's a very big problem. And you can hear it in conservative talk radio. Really, there's not a lot of conservative talk radio left, is there? No, I don't think there is. Most of it's now Republican talk radio, as far as I can tell. Denny, Dallas, Texas, the great WBAP. 1 minute, go.
Yeah, hi, Mark. I just wanted to reinforce your message to support the members of the Freedom Caucus. And when I say support, I'm talking about money, because the GOP leadership is probably out there actively trying to cut the legs out from under these guys. I understand that when these guys go to Washington, they spend 25 or 30% of their time in the basement dialing for dollars, and the GOP leadership is going to be doing their best to dry that up and shovel boatloads of money to anybody that would, primary them.
Well,
so
Danny, I think you're quite right. Now, you do hear the music, right? When you hear the music, I got 20 seconds and I'm out of here. But I agree with everything you've just said. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We got a lot to cover. I want to finish with this, take some calls, but I also want to get into this intelligence area, too. Something very interesting there. But no, Democrats, no, nothing saves you. We still need a full, independent investigation of the Obama administration and what I believe was the politicization of intelligence. Based on everything I've read, something wasn't right. And we need to know about it. I know the Democrats and the media don't care, but I do care, and most of you do care. Now, Joe Pollack at Breitbart has a very good suggestion. He has a piece when the conservative members of the House Freedom Caucus reunite in Washington, D.C. this week. They'll have an unprecedented opportunity. It's the legislative equivalent of an empty net in hockey, when the opposing team brings its goalie into the attack, leaving its own goal undefended. That's what happened in the push for the American Health Care Act when President Donald Trump threw his weight behind Speaker of the House Paul Ryan and the Republican leadership. He says the president's agenda is not dead, contrary to wishful thinking by the Democratic Party and its mainstream media chorus. But for the moment, there's a legislative vacuum on health care. Democrats have no answer to the problems of Obamacare and have not yet presented any of the fixes to which they suddenly pretend they are now open. I've made this point as well. It's a good point. House Republican leaders have been chastened by their loss and want to focus on tax reform. The policy wonks of Northwest D.C. are very quiet. Now would be the perfect opportunity, he writes, for conservative Republicans to unite behind a plan to repeal Obamacare. They could propose a simple, one-page repeal bill, effective at some future date, which would provide time to negotiate Obamacare's replacement and make repeal the default if the talks fail. They could revive the repeal bill that passed the last Congress. They could also produce a new repeal and replace package that could later be pushed through reconciliation in the Senate. Right now, there's no alternative to whatever the Freedom Caucus would propose if they can settle on a good plan. The White House might be inclined, writes Pollack, let's see here, to sign whatever can make it through Congress. And moderate Republicans might be shamed into backing the same legislation they voted for. I think it's a good idea for them to go ahead, the conservatives, and go ahead and propose their bill. Take the Ryan bill and propose it. Maybe make some changes to it. Now, not the recent Ryan bill. I'm talking about 14 months ago. The repeal bill. The repeal bill. And just keep quoting Ryan back to himself from 14 months ago. There was a good piece at National Review Online by Charles C.W. Cook. No particular fan of mine, but that doesn't matter. And the gist of his piece is the GOP is better locally than nationally. And he points out all the progress, all the courageous steps that are being taken in the states. And I can think of some, too. The gun carry laws, the slashing of regulations, right to work, Article 5. There's an enormous amount of progress being made with Republican governors and Republican legislatures. They're restructuring their governments. They're restructuring departments. They're eliminating agencies. They're doing all kinds of things. All kinds of things. Points out the Governor Doug Burgum, North Dakota, signed legislation allowing law-abiding citizens to carry a concealed handgun if they have possessed a valid North Dakota driver's license or state ID card for at least a year. That's it. And there's other matters that are really amazing taking place in the states, which is one of the reasons why we're Federalists. And we believe in the 10th Amendment. Federalism. But the federal politicians, the Republican politicians at the federal level, are really lightweights. And the truth is you've got 30, 40, 50 real lightweights who are liberal, progressive Republicans. They're progressive Republicans. And it is they who will not allow us to restore republicanism and promote capitalism. And the Republican leadership relies on them, listens to them, and embraces them. As if they're going to make peace with them and the Democrats. They're not. You've got school choice going on in the states. You've got pro-life measures going on in the states. Defunding Planned Parenthood, they're trying in the states. You got measures in the states where they're trying to fight illegal immigration and so forth. You now have 10 states that have passed the resolution for Article 5 Convention of States. North Dakota did it last week. And by the way, I want to encourage the people in Arkansas. Tonight and tomorrow, Arkansas, your state Senate is considering a resolution for an Article 5 Convention of States. You better contact your state senator as fast as possible, Arkansas. This is a big one. If we get Arkansas, that's 11. Now, I want you to think about it. We now have 20% of the states. At some point, the liberals are going to realize what's going on. At some point, the rhinos are going to realize what's going on. And the same forces you see right now joining together to attack the conservatives, the 18 left in the Freedom Caucus, will be joining together to attack Article 5 and Convention of States. They'll be joining together to attack, of course, me, but that's beside the point, to attack the Constitution in this effort. But the actions in the states, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we need to be. That's why Article 5 is so important. But I thought this Cook piece at National Review Online was actually really, really good. He says under the current president and Republicans, there'll be no entitlement reform. No entitlement reform. A massive infrastructure bill of the sort the GOP likes to rail against when a Republican is in the White House. No departments will be shuttered or radical structural changes made to the federal behemoth. The promised tax reform, that is a substantial change to the way the tax system works, has already been replaced by tax cuts. Big difference between what goes on locally and what goes on nationally. And now we've come to appreciate what goes on locally and at state levels in dark red states. And so we know that if the Republicans conducted themselves in a principled way at the national level, they could advance causes at the national level. But this is why I tell you, don't expect Washington to redesign what Washington has created. They're not going to do it. I'll give you another example. There was a state Senate president in Arizona. His name is Andy Biggs. And he runs as a conservative and so forth and so on. He gets elected to the House of Representatives this last go-round. And he single-handedly was blocking a vote on the Senate floor for Article 5 Convention of States in Arizona. He leaves. There's a new outstanding Senate president in Arizona. She allows the vote to take place. And Arizona is the 9th state out of the 10 states to approve a resolution for Article 5 Convention of States. This is the sort of thing that we have to face. Where one or a handful of these politicians block the progress of a freedom agenda. Now, what's so amazing about what took place in Washington on the phony health care bill, the Rhino Care, repeal in name only, the vast majority of what the Republicans wanted, the leadership, the vast majority of what Trump wanted, the vast majority of what they all wanted would stay. Meaning the vast majority of Obamacare would stay. But you see, it's the conservatives who are asking for too much. 14 months ago, Paul Ryan says, we're going to repeal it, we're going to send it to a Republican president, he'll sign it. Don't worry about the 60 votes in the Senate. We'll still be able to do it. It doesn't matter. And everything changes. All right, let me take some calls. Then I want to move over a little bit to this intelligence issue and Devin Nunes and so forth. Let's go to Scott, West Palm Beach, Florida, our great affiliate, WJNO. Go.
Mark, how are you, young man?
I'm doing great. Not so young, but I'm doing great, thank you.
Fantastic. You know, I got 1,000 things like every other caller I want to say to you, but I'm going to boil it down to one, and I'm going to make my point. And I just forgot what it was, so let me make my point.
Yes.
I think Donald Trump has dropped the ball for the first time since I voted for him for president, even though I didn't support him early on. And the way he dropped the ball was the tweet that he sent out totally unnecessarily last weekend, calling out specifically the Freedom Caucus and 2 other conservative groups. One of them maybe is quote-unquote conservative. There was no reason to do that. The conservatives are the deepest and widest part of his base that got him elected. And if he's starting to forget that, in addition to all the things I've heard you say tonight, we could be in for some really unhappy times, my friend.
Yeah, I'm concerned if he's listening to people like Newt Gingrich now, or some of these other cut-and-run types, he's going to be in trouble. But he doesn't have a constitutional conservative in his most senior inner circle. He's got New York City liberal Democrats, including family members, and a Goldman Sachs guy by the name of Gary Kahn. He's got these progressive nationalist guys who think they're leading a movement when, in fact, it was the conservatives ultimately who elect Donald Trump president. That's the truth. And it's conservative principles that will make him a successful president or not. It's not going to be progressivism, populism, or nationalism. It's going to be a liberty agenda, a free America agenda.
That's absolutely right. I heard you mention that a week ago. I did a little research. I honestly don't see a conservative in the second layer. If you can try to discern a second layer from the inner circle, I don't see a constitutional conservative even if you go that deep into the bench. I mean, it's alarming.
Well, there's a couple of them in there. I don't pretend to know all the staffers who are in there, but there are a couple. But within the inner circle that goes on his plane is the Air Force One when he flies to Florida and when he flies back and when they're at the signing ceremonies. It's all the same people. You know who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, hey, I remembered the first thing I wanted to say. I'll be very brief. You're not God, but you're like God because you're the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. All the other hosts, I've listened to talk radio for years. They've all kind of wiggled a little bit. They've all slid a little bit. Man, you're saying exactly what you said from almost the first day. And I appreciate that, and I think that's why your audience appreciates you.
Well, you're very, very kind. Thank you, sir. No, there's no way I'm God. I'm an extremely imperfect person, although I try to be a good person. But we're all imperfect. And I want to give this president as much support as I possibly can. I want to give the congressional Republicans as much support as I possibly can. I know what they're up against. I know how diabolical and vicious and horrific the left is. But when they propose stupid things that are going to be harmful to the country and are politically unacceptable to many of us as conservatives, well, you got to speak up about it. You got to oppose it. Otherwise, we're all going to be rolled here. It's all going to move left, both parties. All right, I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
It's a pleasure to have my buddy Daniel Horowitz on the program of Conservative Review, the senior muckety-muck over there. Daniel, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I feel like my IQ just went up exponentially talking to your audience.
Well, thank you. They are the smartest audience of all audiences, as you know. Now, Daniel Horowitz, you have been one of the experts in unraveling this Republican proposal to, quote-unquote, replace Obamacare. Was it as big of a disaster as we conservatives think it was?
You know, it was worse. Since we spoke last, I discovered that the U.S. territories, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, they actually tried something similar, in which they kept this regulatory structure that's completely insolvent, except they just didn't have this individual mandate for younger, healthier people to buy into it. And it collapsed within 2 years. I looked back, they had to ask HHS under Obama for a waiver, and they got it. But they only got it because they weren't states. So this entire thing was a complete sham. Your audience was onto it long before members of Congress. But here's the sad thing. Most of the members of Congress shooting arrows at Meadows and the Freedom Caucus, they don't understand what Obamacare is.
Now, what do you mean by that? They just haven't taken the time, or they're not smart enough?
I mean, we talked about IQ there. I don't get it. This has been the seminal domestic policy issue for years. You think if you'd run for Congress and you say you don't like Obamacare, well, you know what it is. So Meadows and the Freedom Caucus would say, hey, we want Title I regulations repealed, and they look at them like they're from Mars.
Tell everybody what that is. Sure.
That's the requirement that insurance companies have to cover everyone under any circumstance, even after they already get sick. So therefore, young people could game out the system, not pay in, and then get sick, and they have to cover it. That's what makes it insolvent. This bill kept that, except it took away the requirement to purchase and the funding mechanism. So it wasn't even ideological. You know, the Wall Street Journal calls us a bunch of purists. This was purely technical. It was insolvent. I mean, they're the purists. And by the way, another important thing here, you know, talk about compromise. The position of Paul Ryan and the GOP was full repeal. Meadows was actually willing to go along with some Medicaid expansion, a certain degree of subsidies. They just said the regulatory structure has to go.
And what happened to Paul Ryan, who said 14 months ago, you guys uncovered the video, where he said 14 months ago, hey, look, we can repeal these things regardless of the 60-vote issue in the Senate. What happened to that?
You know, it's been a mystery for quite some time, and I don't know how to say this, but he is one of the most articulate people who will actually channel our views in rhetoric. But then you turn around and his actions are completely divorced. He said at the press conference on Friday, we always believe the better way of dealing with pre-existing conditions rather than regulating the market is to fund state high-risk pools. And I jumped out of my seat. I was like, that's the Freedom Caucus's position. So let's shake on it and pass the bill. But somehow what he actually does in detail doesn't match up with that.
What do you make of the White House? It seems to me they just wanted a victory. They really weren't really taking principled positions, were they?
You know, what scares me about that, I heard from members that he would get up in the middle of the meeting and say, you know, I don't care about the details. I just want this passed. And anyone who studies healthcare knows that the devil's in the details. I mean, that's weapons-grade dangerous. And, you know, when he says now he wants tax reform, well, are we going to do the same thing? Have Paul Ryan craft a bill that's a net tax increase and say, I don't care about the details, and you guys have to pass it?
They're not talking about tax reform anymore. They're talking about tax cuts.
Well,
they made a little change now. They're not talking about reforming the system. They're talking about tax cuts.
And that's the key. I mean, we need to see the details, and what exactly they mean, we don't know. But that's the thing. You can't negotiate 1/5 of the economy in the middle of the night. They promised full repeal. If they want to do something other than repeal, say I'll keep this reg but not that reg, I'll keep this subsidy, you have to have a real-life analysis as to what the cause and effect is, what that's going to do. You can't force members overnight to, you know, hey, take it or leave it.
They gave them 18 days. I mean, isn't that ridiculous?
You know, we laugh at the Democrats, but they spent 13 months on what they did, and that's the bottom line. You know, we were ready to do full repeal January 20th, and that was...
Daniel Horowitz, Conservative Review. I'd like you to hang on if you can, because my next question is, Reince Priebus and others are telling the president it's time to work with the Democrats. Do you agree or disagree? We'll be right back. You know, incredible ingredients make incredible meals, but not all ingredients are created equal. That's why Blue Apron partners with a community of over 150 artisanal suppliers, family-run farms, sustainable fisheries, and responsible ranchers across the United States. Thanks to these partnerships, Blue Apron is able to deliver fresh, seasonal, perfectly portioned ingredients with easy-to-follow recipes right to your door for under $10 per person per meal. That is really great. Log in each week to select the recipes you want to cook, or let Blue Apron choose based on your food preferences. Now, with Blue Apron, there's no weekly commitment, so you only get deliveries when you want them. Rediscover how fun cooking can be while enjoying specialty ingredients and exploring new flavors and cuisines. I'm getting hungry just reading this. When you cook with Blue Apron, you bring the best ingredients to your table while developing a sustainable food system for future generations. Join the growing community of Blue Apron home chefs today and get your first 3 Blue Apron meals free, plus free shipping. Let me repeat that. Get your first 3 Blue Apron meals free, plus free shipping. Now, this is what you do. Go to blueapron.com/Levin. That's blueapron, one word, .com/Levin. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. blueapron.com/Levin. Now, I'm going to start doing this with my father. He doesn't even know this yet. I'm going to give it to him as a gift. We're doing it now, but I want to spread it around because it's really a spectacular service with spectacular food. blueapron.com/Levin. You don't want to miss out on it. Remember what I said. First 3 Blue Apron meals free, plus free shipping. blueapron.com/Levin. All right. Let us see. Let us go to some callers here. Oh, I'm sorry. Daniel's still there. Daniel, here's my question. Daniel Horowitz, Conservative Review. I got so carried away with Blue Apron, Daniel. I forgot. Apologize. All right, here we go. So the advice now the President of the United States is getting, obviously, is because he switched from his comments on Friday to his tweeting over the weekend, and now it's all-out war against the Freedom Caucus 18, really 18 conservatives, and they're pushing for him to work with the Democrats. Can you think of 20 conservative Democrats he can work with, even moderates?
You know, aside from the fact that the good news is Democrats won't work with him, so I don't think conservatives need to worry about it. But the mentality disturbs me. It's not just from Trump. We saw it from Congressman Kinzinger, several others, where they said we need to work with Democrats. The fact that Republicans and even the president now think that repealing Obamacare is extreme and somehow Obamacare and Democrats are moderate, that in itself is very disturbing.
That is a great point. So now they ran on repealing Obamacare just a few months ago, and now that's an extremist, purist position. Did you read the Wall Street Journal editorial page?
You know, I just see what I see on Twitter, and that's it.
The Obamacare Republicans, that's what they're labeling the conservatives, purists. So now if you're a principled conservative, you're a purist. So what are they? Impure?
You know, and this is really the problem with that. Margaret Thatcher always called it the socialist ratchet, how the left always defines the contours, the landscape. When they get in power, they turn the screws inexorably to the left, and then when our guys get in, they start off with that being the baseline, never roll it back, only go forward. I think back to 2003 when the Wall Street Journal editorial page railed against the expansion of Medicare. They called it immediate entitlement for promises of notional reforms later, which is exactly what this is. But here we are 13, 14 years later, and we've already, forget about reforming Medicare and Medicaid, we're done with that. We're now enshrining the rest of the middle class entitlement for the rest of health care. So when does this ever end?
Apparently never. Now, Jared Kushner is going to head this new office where they're going to look at government and run it as a business. And he says government is a business and citizens are customers. Aren't actually citizens in charge of everything? Are we customers of government? We are the government.
I mean, this is the problem. You never hear anything about the Constitution. You never hear anything about liberty, limited government, free markets. And at its core, sure, government is kind of inefficient, but we don't have an efficiency problem. We have an ideological problem. Take the State Department, for example. It's not that it's not run efficiently. It's that we have people that have abhorrent moral relativist views, and instead of flushing them, evidently, and Jared, I know, is a big part of the Middle East portfolio, they're hiring John Kerry's people to run Iran and Israel policy.
Would you underscore this point? They have a John Kerry mastermind who was involved in the Iran deal in a senior position at the State Department today, don't they?
No, absolutely. I mean, there's several of them in the National Security Council, Defense Department, but particularly State. The mastermind of the Iran deal, who said it was the greatest deal ever, and also this guy was knee-deep in the Hillary Clinton email scandal. And again, we complain about the deep state, the residual presence of all the Obama holdovers. But can't we start by not hiring new Obama people?
Yeah, and putting them in political slots? But it's amazing to me. We're supposed to hate these 18 House conservatives, but Mattis over at Defense, he wants to hire every left-wing kook out there. You got Tillerson hiring left-wing kooks and so forth. You got all kinds of... I got Huntsman going to Russia. I mean, how do you explain this?
I think Kushner said it best. I mean, he views this as a business. So, when you run a business, you look at the existing personnel and you keep perpetuating it. We need leadership. We don't need a manager. And if it's devoid of any conservative ideology, you're certainly not going to change anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, we appreciate all you do at Conservative Review, and I want to thank you very much for all your excellent writing.
Well, really appreciate what you do. Without your voice, who knows where we'd be.
I guess we'd be in trouble like we are right now. But anyway, Daniel, you take care of yourself. You're a good man.
Thanks so much. God bless.
You too. There's like a handful of really, really smart, I'm almost 60, so I can say young conservatives out there. And I don't want to start naming them because I'll leave somebody off, and I don't mean to do that. But he's definitely among them. And we're very, very pleased to have him at Conservative Review. And one of my fill-in hosts from time to time is another, Ben Shapiro. Absolutely outstanding. And there are others. And that's a good thing because we need young conservative minds so when I eventually retire, they can replace me. Because I'm getting tired. I think I am. All right, let's take a couple more calls here. No, I'm not retiring. Relax. David, Los Angeles, California, Sirius Satellite. Go.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I'd like to know why conservatives hate the Constitution, and by that I mean the promote the general welfare section of it, which our founding fathers wrote twice. They gave us two imperatives: provide for the common defense, which liberals agree we should, and to promote the general welfare.
I'm going to help you out here. The General Welfare Clause is part of the preamble. And do you agree that James Madison is considered the father of the Constitution?
It also. All
right. I know it's hard. Do you believe James Madison is considered the father of the Constitution? It's a yes or no, not an essay question.
I believe there are many fathers.
The answer, ladies and gentlemen, is yes. And Madison wrote about this. He said the general welfare provision, if it means what people like you say, then the rest of the Constitution is irrelevant. Now, Genius, answer my question, being a liberal and all. Why is there Article 1, 2, 3, and all the rest? Why within these articles are there delineated specific powers? Why are there checks and balances if all we need to do is embrace the General Welfare Clause?
We need to do all of it.
No, you can't do all of it. The General Welfare Clause would neutralize all the other clauses.
We need to do our best to...
No, it's not a question of doing our best. It's illogical. If you read the Madison's papers, which were, this is why liberals aren't smart. They think they're smart, but they can't be educated. What is it, David?
Every single attempt throughout our history to promote the general welfare.
He can't help it. He's got
Tourette's. Bitterly fought.
No, I support the general welfare. For instance, unlike you, I support securing the southern border. You don't support that, do you?
to a reasonable extent.
No, excuse me, that's general welfare. I support tax cuts for people who work so they can create more opportunities, more job, and more wealth. That's general welfare. Do you support that?
So you promote...
Answer my question. Do you support it? No, you don't. Your liberal agenda is against the general welfare. It's for big, centralized, iron-fisted government, like Obamacare. Do you know why I want to get rid of Obamacare? It's for the general welfare. That's why I want to get rid of it. It's the general welfare of the American people. We can't survive with it, can we? You knucklehead, get off my phone. He's not capable of learning. But you are, because you're the smartest audience of audiences. The General Welfare Clause is part of a preamble to the Constitution. They're explaining why they're about to enter into this magnificent document and everything that flows from it. The general welfare, what they're talking about is the Constitution will not interfere except with their specific delineated powers under the various articles, sections, and provisions and clauses. They will not interfere with state authority or local authority or individual unalienable rights. So the Constitution addresses the general welfare. So it's like reading the introduction of a book and not reading the following chapters. So they're introducing you and saying, this is what we are addressing as a general matter, the general welfare. Now, here's the specifics. Now, look how he clings to the two words, general welfare. Like a guy with Tourette's. General welfare, general welfare, general welfare. Or a parrot. General welfare. I want a cracker. General welfare, general welfare. Got it. General welfare. Now, can we go into the book and read the following chapters? No! It's general welfare. That's it. Well, of course it's not. And we don't have to surmise. Because James Madison told us this. Which is why when I start to prick his argument, a little piece of, does James Madison consider the father? While there were many. Okay. What about the other provisions of the Constitution? If it's just the general welfare, why would they have spent so much time on there? Well, you try to do both. No, you don't try to do both. But why does he care anyway? Liberals hate the Constitution, and we know this as a matter of fact. They're great heroes, the progressives 100 years ago, and the great philosophers that they relied on, like Marx. They hated that sort of stuff. And on top of that, we just had hearings for Neil Gorsuch for the United States Supreme Court. One damn liberal after another trashing the Constitution, trashing American history, smearing Americans, our forefathers and so forth, going on and on about a living Constitution. They don't even know what the hell they're talking about. And I especially like Dianne Feinstein saying the Constitution has to change with the times. Change with the times. Except, of course, the rulings that they like. You can never change Roe versus Wade. Roe v. Wade is law forever. But wait a minute. I thought things change with the times as we know more science and life begins earlier. No. Only what we want to evolve evolves. Everything else stays forever. What a moron. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Field. Car repairs are getting incredibly expensive, aren't they? A new engine, new transmission, well, that can cost you over $5,000. Even a simple repair to a sensor can cost over $1,000. Luckily, I'm not stuck paying thousands for a major repair, and neither will you when you get extended coverage like I did from CarShield.com, and we have it on our 2010 Camaro. CarShield makes the whole process easy. You select your favorite mechanic or get the work done at the dealership. There's no checks in the mail stuff or waiting for a reimbursement. CarShield gets the mechanic paid directly. CarShield's administrators even provide 24/7 roadside assistance and a rental card while yours is in the shop. Now, if your car is 3 to 12 years old, it doesn't mean you have to pay higher repair bills. CarShield administrators have paid out close to $2 billion in claims, and they're ready to help you. They'll help you get the ultimate protection against repair costs before it's too late. Here's what you do. Call 800-587-7090. It's not the easiest number, so you got to jot it down. 800-587-7090. Mention code Levin. That's code Levin. This way you get 10% off. Or visit carshield.com, carshield.com. Again, use code Levin and save 10%. So that's 800 587-7090 or carshield.com. In both cases, use code Levin, L-E-V-I-N. All right. I guess we're going to have to wait till the next hour to dig in a little bit on the intelligence issues. Also, we have scheduled Mark Meadows, one of the great patriots. He's the man, by the way, who figured out the process to get rid of Boehner. And so you can believe he has a target on the back of his head. Jim, Oakland, California, the great KSFO. I'm taking disagreeables. Go.
Yeah, he's got a target. I've got a target on the back of his head. I'll tell you what. I'm a conservative, Mark. I'm more conservative than you. I think
no, you're not.
Like a communist.
You already sound like a weasel, quite frankly.
I'll tell you what. I would rather have a bad health law and preserve the Trump presidency than to do what's going to happen. We should have known. Trump.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Quiet down, pal. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I'd rather have a bad health law and preserve the Trump presidency. I'd rather have a good health law and preserve the Trump presidency. Because this will not preserve the Trump legacy if this sort of thing goes on, pal. It just won't.
Well, so here's
now, let me tell you one other thing. Governance isn't about the Trump presidency either. It's about the American people. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, but my point...
But I don't care. Hey, go ahead. What do you got to say, Mr. Conservative?
Okay. This is the major point, is that Trump is not an ideologue. He doesn't care. He just wants to win.
I'm not an ideologue either, Mr. Conservative, because if you're conservative, you're not an ideologue. All it means is you support America's history and traditions, our founding documents, and individual liberty. So how is that an ideologue?
It's great as long as you've got 430 people going along with you. When you don't,
this is what I mean. You would give up immediately. The Democrats fight for 100 years to get what they want. You fight for 18 days. Good for you, pal. You're really tough.
In this case, Mark, Trump is thrown in with the Democrats.
No, Trump threw himself in with Paul. Pay attention.
If you didn't know,
but pay attention. Trump threw himself in with Paul Ryan. That was a big mistake, and his advisors should have encouraged him not to do that. Just stick to your promise. You said you would repeal this thing and replace it with the greatest thing since sliced bread. This isn't sliced bread. This is a disaster.
Did you not know that Trump was going to throw himself into the Democrats? Did you not know that?
What do you mean, did I not know that?
Obvious. The guy is not an ideologue. He wants to win. If he can't win...
All right, thanks. Polly, want a cracker? These circular arguments are so frustrating to me. And I'm more conservative than you. And then he uses all the left-wing language. These ideologues, we should throw in with the Democrats. Do Democrats ever talk like this? We control the House. We control the Senate. We control the presidency. Something broke down here. Republican leadership and, quite frankly, the White House. Just stick with your promises. Stick with your promises. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I wish I had more patience for some of these callers, but it gets very difficult when they talk over you and they don't want to be educated. I don't just throw things out there to throw things out there. I'm not a liberal. Now, liberals, like the caller, relying on the general welfare clause. To be specific, it's even broader than that. It's common defense and general welfare clause in the Constitution, in the preamble. And this was addressed at some length by James Madison in 1830, both in a letter responding to a fellow by the name of Andrew Stevenson and in a memorandum which he wrote to himself. Now, Madison was a very young man at the Constitutional Convention. He took notes. Those notes were not made public for 50 years. He wanted them released after he died. Because, remember, it was a secret meeting. Here, in part, is what he wrote, Madison, on this issue of general welfare. Now, this is important because liberals use this all the time. They think they're clever. Like the guy who called, and he wouldn't stop and slow down and listen. So I have to do it after the fact. And Madison was asked this. He was pressed. He said, well, general welfare, doesn't that mean Congress can pretty much spend money on anything it wants to? It's very long, the letter and the memorandum that he writes, but I want to cut to the chase. He says in part, but may it not be asked with infinitely more propriety and without the possibility of a satisfactory answer, why, if the terms were meant to embrace not only all the powers particularly expressed, but the indefinite power which has been claimed under them, the intention was not so declared? Why, on that supposition, so much critical labor was employed in enumerating the particular powers and in defining and limiting their extent? The variations and vicissitudes and the modification of the clause in which the terms common defense and general welfare appear are remarkable. Which was my point. Then there's no point to the rest of the Constitution if that's your view. But it wasn't their view. He later writes, it is to be emphatically remarked that in the multitude of motions, propositions, and amendments, there is not a single one having referenced the terms common defense and general welfare, unless we were to understand the proposition containing them made on August 25, which was disagreed to by all the states except one. In other words, the interpretation was completely rejected. He goes on, Madison, the obvious conclusion to which we are brought is that these terms, copied from the Articles of Confederation, were regarded in the new, that is, the Constitution, as in the old, meaning the Articles of Confederation, merely as general terms, explained and limited by the subjoined specifications, and therefore requiring no critical attention or studied precaution. Now, these liberals are the same ones who hate the founders, who smear them left and right. Oh, he was a slave owner. And on and on and on and on. In order that we embrace the Democrat Party, which, of course, promoted slavery and segregation and Jim Crow. In my lifetime, Jim Crow. So we're not supposed to despise the Democrat Party. We're supposed to despise the men who wrote the Declaration of Independence and gave us the foundations of liberty, all of us, and the Constitution of the United States that protects us from an all-powerful centralized government, or is supposed to. But listen, listen to the left. The General Welfare Clause, they want the Constitution to support centralized tyranny. They want it to mean what their ideology means. And then I get this other caller, Trump guy. Look, make the deal on health care, even if it's a bad deal. Make the deal because it's going to kill the Trump president. I don't live for cults. Presidents come and go. It's the American people that matter. And when the President of the United States, whomever it is, whatever party, is being pressed by the left, internally and externally, we need to press them from a conservative perspective so they understand we're not going to roll over. We want to be supportive. And I have been very supportive in many respects. And we want to support the Republican Congress where we can. I've been very supportive of this nomination of Gorsuch. But we're not going to roll over and become liberals or liberal lights. And so there's no need for that. We have it amazes me. All of a sudden, we have the House and the Senate and the presidency, and all of a sudden we can't get anything done. Well, now, wait a minute. We got this rule in the Senate and these 18 in the House. We got this. That means leadership in Congress sucks. That's what it means. That's what it means. And scheduled to be on this program is Public enemy number one for the liberals, for the rhinos, for the media, Mark Meadows. Because Mark Meadows dares to run a group of dwindling numbers, by the way, of 18, including him, who said, no, wait a minute, I thought we promised to repeal this thing and not replace it with something like it. Oh, what are you talking about? We got to have a win here. We got to do this. We got to do it. Now, I also want to put some context in here, and I did in the first hour. It took Reagan, who won in a massive landslide. Reagan won, I think it was 40-some-odd states in his first round and 49 in the second, but he won in a massive landslide. Reagan got 51% of the vote when he ran the first time, and he was running against a sitting president, Jimmy Carter, and a third-party candidate from his own party. People forget, John Anderson, who got a significant vote. Reagan still got a majority of the vote, and a massive number, over 500 electoral college votes. You want to talk landslide? Then look at that. Reagan didn't give up in 18 days. Reagan didn't say, you know what, screw it. Screw the conservatives. I'm working with the Democrats. You know what he said? I'm going to get as many Republicans as I can. I'm going to undermine the Democrat leader. At the time, a guy by the name of Tip O'Neill from Boston, Massachusetts. And back then, there were actually some conservative Democrats. They called them Blue Dog Democrats. They were from Texas, Southeast, they were Southwest, and the South generally. And Reagan went after them. But Reagan didn't compromise his principles to get them. He won them with his principles. So, I don't understand why they throw away the Reagan playbook. Well, I guess it's because you have to be a principled conservative. Not a progressive, not a nationalist, not a populist, not a whateverist. All right, I want to get this in. We're gonna skip over. We're gonna get to this, then we'll have Congressman Meadows, and then I want to get back to this. Devin Nunes, in a remarkable article in the at the Bloomberg website by Eli Lake. For the last few days, much of Washington has been obsessed with what Representative Devin Nunes did last Tuesday evening. That explosive allegation that he had viewed dozens of intelligence reports obtained through government eavesdropping that inappropriately included details about the Trump transition team. According to a Daily Beast report later over the weekend, Nunes went off the grid that night to meet a source and viewed dozens of intelligence reports, including accounts of meetings involving President Donald Trump's advisors. Then it gets weirder, writes Eli Lake. CNN is now reporting that Nunes had in fact slipped off to the White House grounds last Tuesday to view the documents. And then on Wednesday, after briefing reporters on what he had found in those intelligence reports, he went back to the White House to inform the president. Here's what I'm guessing. Absolutely guessing. A surmise. Got that, Jake Tapper? Surmise. I'm guessing somebody in Intel world had this information and wanted to get it to Nunes. But he couldn't go to Capitol Hill, or she, and was concerned about making direct communication because maybe the phone call or whatever would be picked up. Probably, I don't know this, probably contacted the National Security Council at the White House and said, look, I have something I want to refer over to this chairman, but I don't want to get everybody else involved. I just want to tell the chairman. I don't know this. Again, I'm surmising. And so that's how the meeting took place. Perhaps. It's a possible scenario. On the surface, writes Eli Lake, none of this looks good for Nunes, who is in charge of his committee's bipartisan investigation into all things Trump and Russia. Why would Nunes need to brief the president on documents he viewed at a facility on White House grounds? The answer would be, if in truth, the NSC and the people around the president hadn't seen them. So the person who had them wanted to meet with Nunes on the White House grounds. I know it seems peculiar, but the possibility exists, right? In an interview Monday, Nunes told me that he ended up meeting his source on the White House grounds because it was the most convenient, secure location with a computer connected to the system that included the reports, which are only distributed within the executive branch. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have been saying from day one that Congress, that Nunes, that Burr and the rest of them need to get a hold of the daily presidential intelligence briefings. Now, I'm not saying this is that. I don't know what this is. But that way we know what the intelligence community had gathered and presented to the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States. It's a piece of the puzzle. And if you're going to investigate the Obama administration, which must be investigated, you need that information. We don't have networked access to these kinds of reports in Congress, Nunes said. He added that his source was not a White House staffer and was an intelligence official. And it's amazing how the media wants to know who this person is. The media that lives and dies on anonymous sources, unattributed sources. We got to know what this is. We got to get the guy. Nunes, it should be said, writes Lake, has a history of cultivating independent sources inside the intel community. He made contact, for example, with the U.S. intelligence contractors who ended up saving most of the Americans stuck in Benghazi outpost when it was attacked on 9/11/2012. More recently, Nunes has reached out to his network of whistleblowers to learn about pressure inside the military central command on analysts to write positive reports on the U.S. campaign against the Islamic State. No wonder Schumer went to the floor of the Senate today and said Nunes needs to go. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We only have a few minutes with Congressman Mark Meadows, chairman of the Freedom Caucus. Congressman, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Mark. It's great to be with you, my friend.
Well, you know, you're under constant attack for trying to do the right thing. You're under constant attack. You're called names like a purist and all these other things, and you and your compatriots are responsible for the failure of this bill. I mean, I've talked at length about this with my audience now. What is your bottom? What do you say to these people who are trying to drag you and these other 17 folks down?
Well, I mean, when it really comes to it, it's the price you pay for freedom, Mark. You know that. When you're willing to stand up for hardworking American taxpayers and your listeners, the lovers of liberty, when you're willing to stand up and say we're not going to be satisfied with a status quo that doesn't lower premiums and it just creates Obamacare by another name, you know, it's the price you pay. I mean, do I wish it were different? Certainly. Has it been tough on me and the family? Without a doubt. But you know what? When you stand up for the Constitution, the sacrifices that I've made and the Freedom Caucus has made pales in comparison to our fighting men and women, the people who are willing to put their lives on the line every day for our Constitution, our founding fathers. So, you know, you have to look at it in relative terms, but we're going to continue to fight to make sure that we repeal Obamacare and lower premiums for all Americans.
Look at the forces aligned against you. You've got the Wall Street with the Wall Street Journal editorial page. You've got the liberal media. You've got the Republican leadership. You've got people in the White House threatening you guys. You've got the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I mean, you've got the whole Washington kit and caboodle against you, don't you?
Well, we do. We've got the Washington kit and caboodle against us, but guess who we have for us? The American people, Mark, and you don't ever deny that. The American people, their voice will not be drowned out by special interests on K Street or anything else. And so I'm looking forward to really doing a real repeal bill and a replacement bill that actually allows for free markets and drives premiums down, and put it on the president's desk and allow him to sign that into law. And hopefully that'll come sooner than later, but we're going to continue to fight until it does.
What's the likelihood that Speaker Ryan, if that process opens up again, that Speaker Ryan will invite you and the conservatives in at the ground level like he did not do this time?
Well, I'm hopeful that we see that it creates a disaster when you don't bring conservatives and moderates in at the very beginning. And a lot will be said that, oh, well, they were involved in the process. But really, we had the text of this legislation less than 3 weeks ago, and we're expected to vote on it and send it to the president in its current form. Obamacare took 10 months to draft, and yet we should have been better prepared all in. But I'm hopeful on tax reform or on appropriations going forward, transportation, whatever it may be, that we get all parts of the GOP conference involved and put forth a bill that goes through the regular order that our founding fathers envisioned.
Do you find with the American people that your office is receiving more support than it is negative responses?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I can tell you that it's a very lonely place here in Washington, D.C., but it's a very, very warm and welcoming place on Main Street. Mm-hmm. And the calls that we've gotten from coast to coast, a lot of your listeners, has encouraged me, but it's really encouraged my staff, too, because I think they take the brunt of it when I take a position. And when we get to hear from your listeners that we appreciate the job that the Freedom Caucus and their willingness to stand up for us, it makes a big difference. And for once in a long, long time, people are starting to say there really are people who want to drain the swamp. Even if it sends them home personally, they're willing to stand up for what is right and stand by the average Joe Q citizen that is out there.
You know, the irony of all this, Congressman Meadows, is 14 months ago, Mr. Producer, do we have a cut one? I want you to listen to what Paul Ryan said 14 months ago. Go ahead.
It's no surprise that someone named Obama vetoed a bill repealing Obamacare. And we will hold a vote to override this veto, taking this process all the way to the end under the Constitution. But here's the thing. The idea that Obamacare is the law of the land for good is a myth. This law will collapse under its own weight, or it will be repealed. Because all those rules and procedures Senate Democrats have used to block us from doing this, that's all history. We have shown now that there is a clear path to repealing Obamacare without 60 votes in the Senate.
All right, that's it. We only have 20 seconds left. What do you think of that?
Well, you know, it's those rules in the Senate that have been making us go through all kinds of contortion. Hopefully, Paul Ryan will be prophetic and will actually do that in the coming weeks. I'm looking forward to it. And it's great to be with you, my dear friend. Keep speaking up for liberty and the Constitution.
You too, Mark Meadows. You got an army of millions behind you right here on the Mark Levin Show. God bless you. Now, this Congressman Adam Schiff is a cover-up artist and a frontman for the Democrat Party. He was all during the Benghazi hearings. In recent weeks, he's called for Jeff Sessions to step aside. He's called for a special prosecutor in the Russian matter. He's called for an independent commission or committee in lieu of his own committee to investigate. And tonight, according to Politico, breaking, Schiff calls on Nunes to recuse himself from the Russia probe. Wow, what a breaking story. A hack Democrat. But here's what Politico and the others will not tell you, and I've been saying this now since last Monday when Nunes first came out about the information in these intelligence reports. They have nothing to do with Russia. Why would Schiff have to recuse himself from the Russia probe when what Schiff's been talking about publicly has nothing to do with the Russia probe? Because the Democrats don't care. And I am certain the L.A. Slimes, CNN, the Washington Compost, the New York Slimes, ABC, which knows nothing, the Morning Schmo, and all the rest of them. I'm sure they will explain this to you. That Adam Schiffless is making a political move, as is Nancy Stretch Pelosi. Because they're conspiracy nuts. They're left-wing hack conspiracy nuts. They have a long history of being conspiracy nuts. And the media, of course, are there to protect them and to take out the Nunes or anybody else who gets in their way, as they tried me for the last few weeks, but we kick back. Facts are a wonderful thing. So this is the breaking story at Politico. Politico is a fraud, left-wing, phony news site. Anytime a rhino attacks a conservative like Ted Cruz or something, it's in a headline in Politico. But go look at their homepage. It's a joke. It's like it's written by the DNC or Media Doesn't Matter for America. Tell you what does matter for America. CRTV. Conservative Review TV. Have you tried it yet? Well, we've made it possible for you to try it for absolutely nothing. Absolutely free. A 7-day free trial. 1 full week. You can watch Levin TV, my program. You can watch Michelle Malkin. You can watch Steve Crowder. You can watch Steve Deace. And we'll be adding other people. We're working on that now. All kinds of great platforms, too. 1 week free if you haven't tried it, specifically for my listeners. So I really want you to check it out, okay? You ready? Let's try something. Let's swap the toll-free number, get your 1 week free, and check it out. Why don't we do that? Let's swap them right now. 844-LEVIN-TV. 844-LEVIN-TV. It's that simple. It's a free phone call for 7 days, absolutely free, so you can watch yourself, see if you like Levin TV. And if you want to join us, and you're in the military or a vet or a police officer in law enforcement or a firefighter, you get 30% off right off the top. Why? Because I love you. That's why. Everybody else, I'm going to give you 10% off because I can, even though I'm not supposed to. But check out that free 7 days. Absolutely free, a whole week, to trial period. Not a trial on you, a trial on me. And the rest of it's CRTV. Conservative Review TV. So when we go through this Obamacare stuff, go through this intelligence stuff, you'll hear it in a different way, in a TV way. No commercials whatsoever. And we don't hire a bunch of former Obama flacks, put them on TV, yell back and forth, and then, hey, look at this, we're fair and balanced. No. No, we're about the truth. Patriotism, Americanism, and conservatism. All of which means what? Individual liberty. So, here's what I want you to do. Seriously, if you're a Levinite, it's time for Levin Surge. Call 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV. Be very nice to the folks there. They are wonderful, and they want to be as helpful as they can. And tell them, hey, Mark's just talked about this 7-day free trial. I'd like to get it. Tell me how to get it. How do I? No risk. How do I watch it? Where do I go? They'll tell you the whole thing. 844-LEVIN-TV. Check it out. Schiff calls on Nunes to recuse himself. Oh, well, something must be up there, huh? Let's go back to Eli Lake's piece. Oh, I haven't lost my place. He says, let's look at the bigger picture. Trump has claimed that what Nunes found out vindicates his tweets from more than 3 weeks ago accusing Obama of illegally tapping his wires at Trump Tower. Nunes has repeatedly said the claim is literally false. Yet Nunes has also said the reports he viewed included information that should not have been widely distributed inside the government. In some cases, he said, the names of Trump advisors caught up incidentally in the eavesdropping were not expunged from surveillance reports as those of U.S. persons should have been. Most important, writes Eli Lake, Nunes told me these reports were, these reports were sent to the Obama White House among other executive branch agencies. That is a big story. Big story. These reports were sent to the Obama White House among other executive branch agencies. Nunes, until now, had only said the reports he viewed were widely distributed inside the government. The reports included details about the Trump transition, meetings of Trump and senior advisors. They were distributed throughout the intelligence community and to the White House, Nunes said. In some cases, there was additional unmasking of Trump transition team officials. I am telling you, I have been right from day one that this smells like a skunk, that they need to get to the bottom of this. The Obama administration's handling of intelligence operations and intelligence information needs to be investigated. Eli Lake goes on. This is suggestive, though not yet proof, that White House officials privy to the Russia investigation wanted to keep tabs on Trump and his advisors in the period after the election and before his inauguration. It also fits together with other facts in this story as well. For example, on March 1, the New York Times reported the Obama White House officials sought to preserve intelligence in the final days and weeks of his presidency on Team Trump's connections to Russia and Russia's campaign to influence the election, though Nunes says the reports he viewed had nothing to do with Russia. Oh, yes. I tell you, I deserve a Pulitzer, do I not, Mr. Producer? I'm not trying to brag. Mr. Producer says I deserve the Medal of Freedom. Well, whatever I deserve, I'm tongue-in-cheek here. We're going to continue and push this and stay on this. In addition, writes Eli Lake, we know that details about communications between Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak and Trump's first national security advisor, Michael Flynn, were leaked to news outlets by several current and former officials. That leak ended up forcing Flynn to resign last month. Now, before getting too excited about oversharing intelligence, he says, Let's remember that Nunes is the only member of his committee to actually read these documents. It's possible that other people could have a different Well, it's possible. Particularly Adam Schiff, a.k.a. Shifty Schiff. But I don't think so. Get the presidential daily briefings. These intelligence reports also. And let's get to the bottom of this. This is why Schumer ran to the Senate floor today to say that Nunes should recuse himself. Like a bunch of lemmings. He did it. Pelosi did it. Schiff did it. So now that's on. The media will be next. Hey, yeah. Then John McCain will be on MSLSD. Yes, this looks very suspicious to me. I think he should step down. What we need here is an independent commission. No, that's not what we need here. What we need are some politicians with guts on the Republican side to follow Nunes' lead. That's what we need. I'm quite serious about this. Oh, no, you don't understand. He's got to recuse himself from the Russia probe. It has nothing to do with the Russia probe. Oh, we don't care, really. We're just trying to create all kinds of mischief here. A lot of noise and fury, a lot of static, just to screw the guy. Let's take some calls, shall we? Gary, Waynesboro, Virginia, Sirius Satellite, go.
Hey, Mark, great to talk to you again. To get to the health care thing, I think the president needs to thank his lucky stars that the Freedom Caucus stood up, and some moderate Republicans that way saved his tuchus and saved his presidency and saved the Republic from this Ryan care, because Ryan is not a friend of us, and we know that.
All right, my friend, I want to get in all these calls. Appreciate it, Gary. Ivan, Laurel, Maryland, the great WMAL. Go.
Mark, my great friend, God help us if you are not leading this intellectual and common sense battle. So much of what you and founders, espouse is nothing but common sense. Mark, we used to have a conservative bastion, but much of it has turned to just Trump apologists. Mark, I just wanted to comment on the health care. I just want to know if did we vote for a president who told us how Americans are suffering under Obamacare and how he would fight to fix it, and now he's giving up? And now it's okay for Americans to suffer? Did we vote for a quitter? I mean, I don't get it. And, and I'm just curious, other than saying repeatedly how Obamacare is a disaster, for America, did Trump or Ryan ever get out to the American people and tell them about the benefits of the bill? Did they ever, put the bill out there and just tell us, why Americans should want it? I don't think they did. They just put, it's like they just dusted off an old bill that's been there for 20 years and just say, hey, go ahead and pass anything just to pass it. And I just don't get it.
Well, this bill they proposed, as I said in the beginning of the program, if Obama had proposed this exact bill instead of what turned out to be Obamacare, it wouldn't have gotten a single Republican vote. Not one. That's centralized government control with a few cherries on top.
If Obamacare was disastrous before, it's still disastrous. And why would he just simply give up now? It sounds like he's quitting, and that doesn't.
I don't know why he gave up in 18 days. I mean, can't you duke it out for a few months?
Mark, before the election, I said this, and I'm just repeating what you had said. The Trump signaled that he would go for the Boehner model, which is Democrats, and rhinos. And I hope that he's not going to do that.
But I mean, he's being pushed to do that by Gingrich, by other Republicans, and so. So he should make peace with those who want to destroy his presidency, impeach him, criminalize their politics, create this Russian scandal, who want to block his Supreme Court nominee. That's okay. They're not on the Steve Bannon S list, right? But when it comes to the conservatives, they're on the S list because they're trying to uphold their promises and their principles and make these proposals far better. Ivan, thank you for your call, my friend. I shall return.
Mark Levin.
Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the White House is panicking now. So are the Republicans. Here is a story. Trump wants to do tax reform and infrastructure at the same time. Trump administration is looking at driving tax reform and infrastructure concurrently, according to a House source, a White House source, I should say, with direct knowledge. So it's 1 of 5 people leaking. It's a major strategic shift. Infrastructure was likely going to be parked until next year and is only possible because of last week's health care debacle. So in some sense, they're listening to Newt Gingrich, who said, come on, you got to spend $1 trillion. You get a lot of Democrats that way, and you can do the tax cuts parallel with it. The irony, of course, is lost on all of them. $1 trillion in spending and tax cuts. President Trump feels burned by the ultra-conservative House Freedom Caucus. Now we're ultra-conservatives. Why? Because we backed what they promised? So we backed what they promised, and now we're ultra-conservatives. And is ready to deal with Democrats. Dangling infrastructure spending is an obvious way to buy the support of potentially dozens of Democrats, meaning he wouldn't have to bargain with the hardliners. Well, he's gone Nixon here if that's what he's doing. Bill Schuster, representative from Pennsylvania, the guy who would steer Trump's infrastructure package through the House, tells me he's optimistic Trump could get it done this year. Schuster's a hack. He's a big spending hack just like his father was. Same seat in Congress. Certainly changes the calculus of the timing with the defeat of health care, says Schuster, the chair of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, in an interview in his Capitol Hill office Monday. So Washington is excited, ladies and gentlemen. They're really excited. They're going to go on a massive spending spree, and just for you, because you want roads and bridges and the tiles and the tunnels are falling down, and you want those fixed, expanded airport. Oh, my God, we're going to build Mount Olympus right here. We're going to build Atlantis right here. You've never seen anything like it. It's never happened before. Obama didn't do it. Lyndon Johnson didn't do it. Franklin Roosevelt did. Oh, my gosh, it's just magnificent. We populist, nationalist, progressives, agrarians, mercantilists, you ought to see. It's going to be great. All the money flowing to the states and the localities because we know how those political those political statesmen will spend your money. It's going to be a beautiful thing. They're panicking, and they're lurching left. The White House and the Republicans panicking and lurching left because they put a crap bill up there that they couldn't get passed in 18 days. This is becoming pathetic. But I'll tell you what's really great. CT shirts. It's true. If you see me on my way to work or a meeting, then look the other way. But truth is, chances are I'm impeccably attired in one of my many CT shirts. They're the best shirts in my closet. People judge us by the clothes we wear. So if you show up to work, a meeting, or a date in a wrinkled, out-of-style shirt that doesn't fit right, that's how you'll be judged. It's time to step up your game. So I got you a special CT shirts deal. CT shirts are British-styled using the softest, most exquisite fabrics you can ever find. Work or casual, tie or no tie, tucked or untucked, when you're wearing a CT shirt, you look great and you know it. So here's the deal. One CT shirt normally costs $100, about $100, but right now you'll get 3 CT shirts for just $99. 3 for $99 as opposed to 1 for $100. That's 60% off. And CT shirts come with free delivery. Listen to this. A 6-month quality guarantee and free returns. Nobody does that. Free delivery, a 6-month quality guarantee, and free returns. And you won't return it. You're going to love these shirts. So if you hurry, $99 gets you 3 amazing CT shirts. Go to ctshirts.com/Levin. That's ctshirts.com/Levin. ctshirts.com/Levin. That's Levin. Try it. You get 3 shirts. And I know you're going to love them. And they are beautiful shirts. And they're really, really soft. Really, really soft and comfortable. So here it is. This is the article. Trump needs fast victories. And infrastructure is something that's big, flashy, and potentially bipartisan. This is the Gingrich line, too. There's no solid plan yet, but Schuster knows how to appeal to Trump. Infrastructure is always something you can see it, you can feel it, you can taste. What the hell are we dealing with here, folks? You think we're a country with surpluses? You think we're a country with with all kinds of money to piss away. I'm so sick of this stuff. Just call it infrastructure. I gave you my idea. Call the United States military infrastructure and spend $1 trillion on that. $1 trillion on the United States military. We need ships. We need planes. We need equipment. We need to make sure our men and women in the military are well cared for and that they have pensions and proper health care. No, you don't understand. We need. We're going to do this bridge here, and then we're going to do that. And they always say our collapsing, our dilapidated infrastructure. The vast majority of this money doesn't go to that. The vast majority goes to shiny things with ribbon cuttings. Oh, we'll be on top of this tomorrow. You better be on the edge of your seats, because I can see panic in the air here and a lurch to the left. Ladies and gentlemen, we salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel. And you, America's patriots. I'll see you on Levin TV in 2 minutes. Don't miss that. Really. And on the radio tomorrow. God bless.